Blue predominant eyeshadow palettes or eyeshadow palettes with a pop of blue are my favorites. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Because these are my favorite types of palettes, I have a good assortment for you. We're going to be doing some detailed swatches and looks with almost every palette. In some cases, I have eye swatches. Let's go ahead and get into it. For the brands that I have discount affiliate codes, I'm going to go ahead and put them in the description box. I'm going to also reference and link many relevant videos. And I would recommend checking those out if you're interested in more detail about a specific topic. Let's start off with the first brand that came to mind when I thought about blue palettes, and that is Cosmic Beauty. They've got 3 palettes that are in my top 5 from the brand in general, and I have been using this brand's eyeshadows for years at this point. Some quick hallmarks I want to mention about the brand: they in general have a very affordable price point. Their matte formula is buildable. Their shimmer formula has continued to step up over the years and often includes some type of duochrome and multichrome in the palettes. The shimmers have overall become less emollient over time, and the palettes do ship from the UK, so you can have a bit of a shipping fee more than you're used to, so just something to keep in mind. This is the Cooltrals palette, and I really like to think about this as the type of palette for those who like cool tone blues, and in particular muted tones. As you can see, you have a really nice array of muted mattes in this palette. And I love that because I feel like it's actually quite rare to get such a wide assortment of muted shades in one palette. You have some very sparkly shimmers in here. The chromes don't have the wildest, kind of most intense shift to them, but you do get a lot of sparkle. The only critique I would say with this palette is that a couple of the shimmers do look similar and could probably have been tweaked a little bit, but other than that, I really like this palette. I love the variety of mattes from light to deep, and I really do enjoy the looks that I've created with it. Okay, the next palette that I have is from Cosmic Beauty. This is the Winter Wonderland palette. This came out almost exactly 2 years ago, I want to say. This is an extremely well-loved palette, both by myself and by lots of other people. It's their first blue predominant palette, and it came out at a perfect time of year right before the holidays. In this palette, you get lots of the dreamy blue tones, but you also have some deep tones. You have some teals, you have a blue-purple matte, and a really wide variety of shimmers. They have this iridescent in here that I love, and a multi-chrome that is super shifty. Now, this palette is a couple of years old at this point, and the older palettes do have more emollient shimmers in them, which is something that has changed over time with Cosmic Beauty. But I still love this palette, and I created a look for this video. Love how it turned out. I remember when this palette came out, how many people said that it was in their top 5 palettes of the year, even their top palette of the year. It really is a perfect dreamy winter wonderland type of color story. And here is what all of the shimmers look like swatched on the back of my hand. And here's what the whole palette looks like swatched on my arm. Something that I've really come to be able to depend on with Cosmic Beauty palettes is a great variety of mattes from light to deep. A lot of palettes don't have enough deep mattes, and it's simply never the case with Cosmic Beauty. The third and final palette I want to talk about from Cosmic Beauty specifically is Starlight Society, and this is actually a pretty new palette. And as you can see, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily blue leaning, but there is a good pop of blue in here. And I do think the title of the palette is perfect because when I see this palette, I think of Stars at Night. The gold and blue color combination is so beautiful, and that yellow matte in here is a really good one, which is significant because yellow mattes are not easy to do, especially a yellow matte that is going to show up on medium to deeper skin tones. And you can probably see as I'm swatching, these shimmers are definitely less emollient than a few that are in the Winter Wonderland palette. And that is an overall trend that I've seen with Cosmic Beauty. I also feel like some of the shimmers have more of a sparkly topper-like effect. which I also really love because I feel like that just makes the shimmers a little bit more versatile. There's also some really cool deeper mattes in here. Love the maroon. A good maroon is hard to come by. And that muted kind of deeper blue purple is very unique. I think this may have become my favorite color story from Cosmic Beauty. Okay, next I have to talk about a few C-Beauty palettes. And I use this term C-Beauty. C-Beauty is Chinese beauty. And this is a collab palette between Chirip and Freya. Apologies if I didn't say the brand name correctly, but this is another beautiful pop of blue palette. If you're not following Freya, I highly recommend it. She does some incredible alt beauty looks. And fun fact, she's done quite a few collabs with different C-Beauty brands. Chirip is a brand that is very affordable and still you get an incredibly high quality. They're also pretty widely available. You can even get them on TikTok Shop and YesStyle. In this palette, you can see that you get some beautiful holographic shimmers and multi-chrome shimmers and just really pretty sparkly toppers. You also get a great variety of mattes. You have some beautiful cool tone blues, some grays, and even a little pop of coral. Some of the shimmers in this palette and in Chirip palettes in general are a little bit emollient. So again, it's just something texture-wise that I like to mention. But I think that this is a really cool color story, very unique and fun. It's probably my second favorite color story after Floating Life, which was also in collaboration with Freya. So if you're looking to dip your toes into C-Beauty, I think this is a good place to start, especially because you can get this brand from so many different retailers. Okay, and the next palette I have is from a brand that I've really come to know and love over the past couple of years. This is Krypine Cosmetics, and I've called this brand my favorite C-Beauty brand. The mattes and the shimmers are both fantastic. The shimmers in here really are, I want to say, the most spectacular shimmers that I've tried in a palette, that is, and I do think that's saying quite a lot. And basically, this is like a blue monochromatic palette. You do have some pops of gray in there as well. So I love it. And the shimmers in here are not only sparkly, but you have several that are really intense multi-chromes with cool flips. I have heard from a lot of people, even with more kind of hooded lids, that these shimmers last well on them. They smooth out well with your finger or with a brush. They're just absolutely beautiful. I also find the matte formula to be incredibly reliable. I found that even the mattes that don't swatch the best perform well on the eyes. It's a buildable, blendable formula. It's a little bit powdery, but you don't get a ton of fallout by any means. And it's been quite a while since we've gotten a launch from Krypine Cosmetics. I want to say close to Halloween, so I'm pretty excited to see what they have in 2026. I feel like something is just around the corner. Here is what the whole palette looks like swatched in the back of my hand. I feel like someone was asking me recently which brand has the sparkliest shimmers in their palettes, and it's gotta be Krypine for me. Okay, next we have a palette from Anthemy. I actually have a couple of palettes from Anthemy to talk about in this video. This is another C-Beauty brand, and this color story is so cool. My eyes always go right to a bold, beautiful cobalt blue. Love that matte in here. Things that I really enjoy about Anthemy are the unique color stories. These color stories are just some that I've never seen from other brands. I also love the artwork on the outside. You just get a whole experience with the Anthemy palettes. In terms of the formula itself, I think that these shimmers are going to really work for a wide range of skin types. The mattes are quite pigmented, but I do find them to be very blendable, easy to work with. They are more pigmented right out of the gate than some of the other formulas that I've tried, but still very easy to work with. You can see that you have a couple of mattes with shimmer in this palette too, and this black matte with shimmer is very standout. Here's what the whole palette looks like swatched on the back of my hand. I think this is a beautiful jewel-toned color story. I just realized that I didn't say what the name of this palette is. This is called Abyssal Codex. And I also forgot to mention, you get a great variety of C-Beauty palettes on both the Cbeautymall site and the Lookhealthystore site. My affiliate code for both is going to be in the description box, but it's just GLAMSMITTY. Okay, and now for my favorite palette from Anthony, this is Eyes Ferret, and I have talked about this palette before. It's another beautiful winter color story. The shimmers in here are so standout. Again, I really love the muted tones in here. The multi-chromes in here are spectacular, but also you get some really pretty sparkly shimmers, a very punchy iridescent shade. This palette actually goes in and out of stock quite a bit, and honestly, I can see why. It's another perfect dreamy blue winter color story. And something I want to mention is that with any of these brands, if these color stories don't particularly speak to you, I do feel like they have extremely reliable, great formulas. So if you happen to find another color story from these brands that does speak to you, I really don't think you can go wrong. Here is what the whole palette looks like swatched in the back of my hand. Let me know in the comments if you've tried Anthony, because they have definitely become one of my favorite C-Beauty brands to get eyeshadow palettes from. And hopefully you can see from a lot of these C-Beauty brands that I'm trying on in looks just how pigmented the mattes are. As a person of color, it makes using them such a joy. All right, now we have another C-Beauty brand. This is called Narimi. If you know, you know, because these are really great palettes. I have some of the same commentary about them as I do about Anthony, because they've got really beautiful artwork, very unique color stories, like color combinations that I just wouldn't think of and I haven't seen in other palettes and other brands. A lot of the palettes from Narimi come in this format of 8 pans, with the pans being more vertical. These mattes are very pigmented. I do want to say that I have found that they are a little bit more breakable. I have had a couple of mattes break in transit to me, but I haven't found that it's happened super often. As you can see, the shimmers in here are very special. You tend to get only a few shimmers in the Narimi palettes, but the shimmers you do get tend to be spectacular, as you can see. In here you have a holographic, you have some chrome shades, you have some more sheer sparkly toppers, and these mattes are incredibly pigmented on the first go. You do have to go in with a bit of a light hand because you can very easily pick up too much pigment when you go in the first time. Here's what the whole palette looks like swatched on my arm. This is definitely more of a lighter pastel variety of mattes. This color story definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone. Here's what the whole palette looks like swatched on my arm. Now, of course, this palette is more like just a pop of blue rather than a blue leaning palette. Okay, also from Narimi, we have this palette called the Eyed Earl palette. I believe it came out around the same time as the other palette that I showed from Narimi, but these palettes are new to me. This color story really speaks to me, I think even more than the color story I just showed. I love the bright cerulean matte we get in here. I also love the lilac tones and the depth that we get with that cool toned brown matte. That mossy green is a nice touch and definitely a tone I wouldn't have thought to include. You can really see how intense these shimmers are as I'm swatching them in real time. Here's what all three look like swatched in the back of my hand. Something that's really fun about the Narimi palettes is they tend to be palettes that I see other creators creating with, and I always get inspo from the looks and the color combinations. I think the Narimi palettes have really become beloved by so many other creators, and for good reason. Here's what the whole palette looks like swatched on my arm. Let me know if you've tried anything from Narimi. They're a brand that continues to excite me, and I can't wait to see what they do in 2026. Okay, now we have another brand I mentioned in my most recent palette video. This is Cloudicos. Cloudicos is an Australian indie brand, and they have a pocket series. This is the Pocket Winter palette, and it has a perfect pop of blue. I've mentioned these palettes lots of times before. They are a go-to travel palette for me. I love how compact they are and how much punch these shimmers pack. And I do want to acknowledge that the packaging that you get with these palettes is similar to other brands that are cheaper. However, that doesn't reflect, in my opinion, the specialness of the shades inside. These shimmers have all been hand selected with care. And I just love the tones in this palette. You get those really special blue shimmers. You have some very punchy silver shades. And with these palettes, a little bit of product definitely goes a long way. Like, this palette is not one that you're gonna pan super fast by any means. I've used this rich blue metallic so many times. And again, if this color story is not your vibe, they also have all of the other seasons. If you're looking for something lighter and more ethereal, I think the Pocket Spring is also a great option. Here's what the whole palette looks like swatched in the back of my hand. Okay, next brand I want to talk about is Fantasy Cosmetica, and I don't believe that I've talked about them in any recent videos, but they have two palettes that are absolutely perfect to talk about. And the first palette is the Wizard palette. I do believe that this palette is currently out of stock. I really hope that they restock it. It's one of my favorite palettes from the brand. As I mentioned when I talked about the Starlight Society palette, I love the combination of yellow and blue. And the pastel yellow matte that we get in here is so cool. I definitely have to resist using it every time when I use this palette. My favorite shimmer in here is that holographic one. Something that I've also seen with Fantasy Cosmetica is improvements in their eyeshadow formula over the years. I used them when they first came out, and the formula of their shimmers and mattes have definitely stepped up over the years. And they honestly put together some great color stories. Don't get me wrong, they definitely have some that I don't love, but I've found a lot of hits from the brand, and if there's a color story that's speaking to you, I don't think you can go wrong. I do hope they decide to restock some of the palettes that are out of stock currently. Something I love about sharing these palettes with all of you is getting to play with them again, because this is definitely one of my favorites. And the second palette I want to mention from Fantasy Cosmetica is Cradled in Ice. I know I've talked about how much I like the combination of blue and yellow, but I also really enjoy the combo of blue and pink. There's just something about this color story that's so sweet. I think that light pastel pink is so pretty and just makes a beautiful contrast with the blues in here. You get some beautiful muted tones, but with that you get several deep mattes, which I love, because with deep mattes you really can make such a wide variety of looks. There's also just something about the shimmers in here that I really love. I love that they're so sparkly. They're not like chrome shimmers, but they're incredibly sparkly, and you have a bunch that have multicolored sparkles. Shimmers like those tend to be some of my own personal favorites. The only thing that I'll mention with this palette is that there are a few shimmers that look a little bit similar. There's also a couple of mattes in here that look quite similar as well. Those things aside, I think this is such a beautiful, sweet color story, and just a brand I like to mention as one that has really impressed me over the years, especially with all of the improvements that they've made with their formulas, their covers, really the whole thing. Okay, the next palette I want to talk about is from Viseart. This is actually older footage because I've used this palette quite a bit since I got it. This is the Paris Nuit Étoilée palette. Truly not a blue palette in any way, just one with a pop of blue, and I always think about that blue when I reach for this palette. I've talked about Viseart many times before, and one of the things that I absolutely love about their formula is the mattes, for sure. The mattes are simply some of the best that I've used in terms of how well they work. I find the formula to be buildable and blendable. I really would call this formula beginner friendly. People don't talk about the shimmers in Viseart palettes often, but I do really want to say that in the past couple of years, they have truly stepped up to the point where using the shimmers is something I genuinely look forward to. I will say, Viseart is known for a lot of neutral shades. They do have some beautiful, colorful mattes as well. So while they don't have as vivid color stories as some of the other brands that I've shared about and talked about, you can get some beautiful day-to-day looks with them and some beautiful editorial looks if that's what you're going for. Okay, next palette I have is a capsule palette from Mob Beauty, and this is called the Retro Roller Ring palette. This is incredibly unique because you get 2 cream clay shadows and you have a suspended sparkle bomb. The suspended sparkle bomb is exactly what it sounds like. It's sparkle that is suspended in clear balm. It gives a sheer diamond-like effect. And I do have a video dedicated to all of the capsules that I have from Mob Beauty. So I am going to link that in the cards. The cream clay shadow formula really is unlike any formula that I've tried. It's a cream shadow and it blends better than any powder eyeshadow that I've tried. They're such a joy to use. They don't fully set down, so I do recommend using some type of translucent powder with them. And this little capsule palette that was done as a collaboration between Sarah Rosie and Mob Beauty is one of my favorites. The cerulean blue that you have in here really is a standout shade. And that deep chocolatey brown is lovely. Sometimes what I like to do is just put it all over the lid, top it with the sparkle bomb, and put a little bit of that cerulean blue on the lower lash line. It's just the perfect, easiest, most effortless pop of blue. If you are curious about all of the other Mob capsules and looks with them, definitely check out that video. Okay, last but not least, we have the crystallized palette from Bella Beaute Bar. There's actually a few palettes that I could have talked about from Bella Beaute Bar, but I chose this one. This palette came out just recently before the holidays. I really would call this palette like a pop of blue rather than blue by any means, because even like the tones that are in here are more like blue purple. I still couldn't resist talking about it because it is a beautiful palette. The shimmers in here are definitely some of the most top tier shimmers that I've tried from Bella Beaute Bar. They've got quite a number that are sparkly toppers. The matte formula I find to be quite easy to work with. The only thing with this palette is that I do wish we'd had a few more of the deeper mattes, or just a few more variety with like the deep mid-tones and deeper mattes. But really that's my main critique, because I think the shimmers in here are chef's kiss. Something you can expect with Bella Beaute Bar palettes in general is that the pans are magnetic. You can move them around, do some mixing and matching. I haven't been doing a lot of mixing and matching recently because I like using a lot of the palettes from the brand as they are. But with this palette, I think I'm going to make an exception because I personally think I'm going to reach for it even more if I have a few of the mattes that are going to work better for me. Now, these palettes can run pricey, especially because you do get so many more special shimmers in them. I will say, if you have a color story that speaks to you though, I don't think that you'll be disappointed. They also have several palettes that have holochromes in them. That's holographic multichromes. Their holographic shades to me really are standout. They also tend to include at least one, if not multiple multichromes in the palettes. Those also tend to be standout in my opinion. Another palette that I'm not covering here, but I do want to make an honorable mention is Ocean Jewel. That's another palette that has some beautiful pops of blue. And then I just had to show a clip with these shimmers because they have some shimmers in here that are the most beautiful sparkly toppers, which is why this palette is probably shimmer-wise one of my favorites from the brand. Okay, now that we've had a chance to go through everything, I would love to hear what you think of some of the palettes that I picked out. This is not a comprehensive video because I can already think of some other palettes I could have included in this video, but I do think that we talked about some great palettes here. I would love to hear in the comments if you've tried any of the palettes I mentioned in this video, if you have any palettes that you love that have a pop of blue. And of course, if you love blue eyeshadow as much as I do, or what color you do love if not blue. You can wear any color, any season you want, but it is fun sometimes to get into the color of a season. And blue is definitely a color I think of when I think of winter tones. As always, I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.